you've landed on Discovery. We'll be talking with Dan Orman today, co-owner of Freed's in Windsor. And like everything in life, there's a price of admission, and that will be for our guest to speak with candor and get a raw glimpse into the life that they built around their business and personally, and where they're heading in the future. Dan was born in Windsor in 1962, went to Roseland Public School, on to Massey High School, and then University of Windsor and York University. Started at Freed's in 1984. That's epochs ago for some of us, isn't it? Have the privilege of buying and servicing clients in this business for the last 38 years, both in Windsor and Detroit. And fortunate this is his comment, fortunate to have a successful partnership with his cousin, Ari Freed, for the same amount of time. So without any further ado, we're going to introduce to you Dan Orman. Hey, Dan.
How you doing?
Good seeing you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Yeah. Anyways, I think an appropriate starting point, since we're looking at your grandfather behind there, what was your business relationship and personal one like? Not necessarily in that order.
Well, my grandfather passed away when early into my career, so I only knew him as the loving grandfather that just loved our family, but I also was able to witness how he was respected and loved in the city, and how people gravitated to him, and what has been the foundation of our store is all, and our family for that matter, and that was one sale more, one sale less, as long as we're taking care of the customer, as long as the customer has a great experience. That was his edict. And as long as, he always used to say, even as he got into his 90s, he says, you would go up to the customer and say, is everything okay? Just as long as you're taken care of. And he was a wonderful, loving patriarch to our family that we all gravitated to, and we all surrounded with a small man. I don't think he was much taller than 5'5", but always dapperly dressed, loved this store, loved his family, loved what he created, and loved that his legacy would live on for many, many years. So that was always instilled in me, David, and that's the things that I took on as I started my career, and as I strove to be successful in this business.
Excellent. What a pedigree. Interesting. Ari said the same thing in the interview. And of course, you guys didn't really coalesce on that because you didn't have the script.
No.
So to our listening audience, that's a real testament as to how you viewed your grandfather and the values that he instilled in you.
For sure.
And what a great legacy. Beautiful stuff.
Yep.
So when I ask about what were the greatest moments or moment of your varied and storied career, obviously that foundation was key to certain experiences, I imagine. So why don't you give me a couple of those?
Well, I started in 1984, and I came from school in Toronto, and I saw the bustling and the fashion and the how much more progressive Toronto was than Windsor. And the first things that I brought to the store was a company called Roots. And that was, I said, what is this Roots sweatshirt that everybody's wearing? And I said, why are people wearing these sweatshirts? It's almost like a cult. Right. And came to Windsor, and nobody knew what it was. As it turns out, these two gentlemen that started Roots were from Michigan, and they were draft dodgers. They didn't want to get drafted in the Army, came and moved to Canada. Went up to a camp in Northern Ontario, developed these sweatshirts that became one of the greatest fashion successes of our time. It was incredible. And my father, because they were originally from Michigan, had an exclusive rights to this brand in the city of Windsor that nobody else could carry. We had none of it in the store. So in 1984, I said to my father, we got to bring this product into the store. And we created a buzz that was incredible. So it was like the first thing that started my career is I brought this product to the store, and all of a sudden it's like exploding. We couldn't get enough of it. I had to make relationships with the with the shipper there, can you steal me some more sweatshirts? Because they would just, as soon as they would come into the store, they would fly off the shelves. I have had so many different stories like that, but the biggest success of my career is without question, not only having the ability to understand what this community wants, being an independent store in this city, you get to see your customers every day. You're on the floor, you're welcoming the customers, you see the trends that they're buying, and able to try things outside the box with an immediate impact to whether they like it or whether they don't like it. So that gives us an advantage over every major store in the country, whether it be the Bay, whether it be Sears at the time or whatever, or all these national stores that would come down that were centered in Toronto that would open up a store here. They didn't have the advantages that we had. And we could actually get a real response, an on-time response to things that we bring in, whether they're good or whether they're bad. I love fashion. I've always have. I still do. I'm 60 years old, and I still have that desire to create that excitement. I still get a euphoric feeling from buying something that is actually appreciated and loved by and seeing it go.
Right.
And there's been many throughout my career, but it's mostly the taking care of the consumer and touching the consumers of Windsor and Detroit when we had them come over.
Sure.
It's a magical feeling.
Well, I felt the energy go up with that piece
Yeah.
for sure, Dan. That's great. That's intense. Let's shift over to what about lowest point of the career, like personal or otherwise? Ask you to kind of get undressed metaphorically here a little bit, and maybe scrape below the surface. So we all have low points, and we haven't scripted this, but here it is.
I would say the couple of things come to mind. Now I'm going to step back for a second, knowing that my grandfather and my father and uncle never went through professional low points. It was always an ascension. It was always great and everything. Ari and I got into the business, and right away, very early into our tenure, they changed the whole dress code. They made the car companies went corporate casual, and what did that mean? And we were known as a suit store, and that was the foundation of our store.
Right.
And how would that transcend into our business? And we felt that there was an immediate impact. So that was reinventing yourself, number one. That was the first reinvention. Then Ari and I caught a vein with the U.S. market, and it created record sales in our department, in our store, in our suit department, and all throughout our store. We had a flow of people coming over to the store from Detroit, and it just was incredible. It was unreal. Then 9/11 hits.
Right.
You want to talk about the ultimate downer, the ultimate kick in the pants, and it changed everything all in one day. People weren't coming over the border. It changed how you needed a passport to come over the border as opposed to just a driver's license.
Right.
And so how are we going to survive this? How is Freed's going to survive this? And from 2001 to probably 2008, when the stock market crashed, the dollar went to par, we were struggling with significant traffic flow issues, and we didn't know how we were going to overcome that. So that was one of the big lows. Then we got back up, and I was on a buying trip to Toronto, and I saw this company called Pinstripe, and it was a suit package for a suit, shirt, tie, belt, and sock, and a pair of shoes for $200. I said, how can anybody do that? And then we found out, and we partnered with them, and then we dissolved the partnership, and then created our own brand by doing it ourselves with our suppliers. That took off. That was the ultimate leader. It was the ultimate. We were able to get proms and weddings, which was a new business for us. It usually just was to the rental houses. It was to the tuxedo houses. That's how where these people went. Now they were able to buy it for the same price and still own it. So that took off.
Nice.
Then the pandemic hits.
Right.
Where the Canadian government, for the first time in modern history, closes us down 3 separate times a year from 2020 to 2021. Never could we ever face something like that? And throughout that was, how are we gonna get out of that? How are we gonna get ourselves out of this? So you wanna talk about the ultimate level? It was the unknown, because not only could we not control our own destiny, we were at the mercy of what the government was gonna do for us.
Right.
We had no idea. So being closed, just staying home, looking through the four walls, have this big store, how does Freed's come out of that?
And when?
And
if when.
Correct.
I'll say
correct.
when, if.
I mean, it was extremely frustrating, and probably the lowest point of my career, especially the third time.
Sure.
The first two times, I kind of get it, but the third time was a real kick in the knees, and I didn't know if we would be able to survive it. And
you did.
We did.
Marvelously.
Came out of that.
Beautiful.
Changed the way we did business. Changed our store hours. Kind of like an epiphany, where you had to where before 9/11, before the pandemic, we had to be open 100 hours a week because we didn't want to miss one customer.
Right.
Changed the way we did business.
Sure.
And that has been somewhat of a whirlwind surprise since we reopened in June 13th of 2021.
Sure. Kind of reminds me of that in a little bit. I don't know so much in retail experience, but what am I looking for? Scarcity creates desire, let's say. So
there was a pent up for sure at the end when you reopened.
Even the hours.
Yeah.
I'm reflecting on when you compress the hours and they want your product, it's great delivery,
right?
Customer experience, client experience type of thing. Then they'll compress and work around those hours and understand that's the way it should be, and it's better for everybody. Maybe not everybody, but some people it might be inconvenient. Let's be frank. But the fact of the matter is there needs to be adjustments, and I was supportive of it, and I understood it on a business level why you would do that. But they want the product and they want the experience. Bottom line, that's it.
Absolutely.
Seems like you were true to you no matter what may type of thing from the very beginning. You came into business a long time ago and you haven't drifted from that. But and I asked Ari the same question, that like notoriety, because you're very well known, hasn't affected you. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say why, but you tell me.
I think Tim McGraw said it very, very succinctly in a song. He said, "Always be humble and kind." Right back from my father to Gerald Freed, never rest on what was yesterday when you can do better tomorrow. And what you did well yesterday, make sure that you do that same thing and maybe even better the next day.
Sure.
But be humble and be kind, and never have any airs about you when you think that you're here, and no matter who's walking into your store, we are a destination store. They're here for a reason. Make sure that you give them the best experience you can possibly have, and that has always been the foundation of our store. That's
beautiful.
Yep.
I was going to ask you, as I kind of bring this in for a landing, that what are the 3 pieces of advice, business, personal development, you wanted to throw it out there for people to gain traction in their lives or maybe make some adjustments, but you actually just nailed it with what you said.
Well, I can take that even a step further. I'm a believer in an eye contact. I'm a believer in a firm handshake. I'm a believer you have one chance to make a first impression.
Right.
And that first impression is predicated on how you present yourself to somebody else. And am I perfect all the time? No. But is that something that I tried to achieve? Yes.
Yeah, you're staying in the moment, be conscious of it.
Yep.
I've always noticed that about you, and I know when you're on the floor, there's the game face type of thing, and I'm not saying you put it on, but we have to present to a client, customer, the positive aspects. But I can see the stresses that are on people's faces being trained in business and that type of thing, and boy, I've worn it on my face and shoulder many times, but you've always walked with a grace and an eloquence and a welcoming
Appreciate that.
approach, Dan, no question about it.
So there are many layers to this store.
Yeah.
There's what you see on the floor. There's what you don't see behind the scenes.
Right.
We have been unionized since the late 50s, which is, I believe, we're the only independent clothier in the whole country to be unionized. So, and we're a union town. So we got the trials and tribulations of that. We have a great relationship with our staff. They stay here forever, as you
That's
know.
right, yeah.
And
It's
so
amazing.
obviously we've done something right within our partnership with our union that gives them the security of staying here, and they have. And that's,
Fantastic.
don't know what the future holds, but I know that if you treat your employees as your number one assets, they'll stay. They'll stay and they'll thrive.
Absolutely. The tenure is incredible. I haven't, it's a rare thing to see that in this day and age, but even back in the day, there was a lot of transition. And once they come here, they leave here, and if not feet first, they just leave when they retire, right?
Right.
And they've done both.
Yep.
Not to make light of that, but the fact of the matter is they want to be here.
Mhm.
Great testament.
Yeah.
So, look, I want to keep my finger to the wind of what's going on at Freed's. Like to have you back sometime, do this again, and
Sure.
really appreciate you.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, great.